First, a person finds their body of the second attention. The body of the second attention is its energy body. Why the second attention? Well, it's just so that we can talk about unfamiliar processes using familiar terms. This term was taken from the books of Carlos Castaneda. The first attention is everything related to the senses, and the second attention is everything related to extrasensory perception. That's why this wording was chosen, to avoid creating a huge number of new terms. And so, in the first course, the practicing person studied their energy. He was developing extrasensory perception. He was developing an understanding of how much we have both inside the body and outside of it, and released these processes from the state they were in. Everyone has different states. Some people have one type of energy, trapped and compressed, while others have a different type of energy, also trapped and compressed. Everyone has some starting conditions. In all people born on this planet, something is fundamentally trapped somewhere. And these processes, the ones I show there, helped. So, changing these starting conditions? So, it's about pushing off from what exists and moving towards where you want to go. Every person has energetic processes that are very well developed from birth. And here is the ability to cling in your practices to processes that are fast, that are easily achieved, that they easily manifest. It's about jumping into these fiery states and pulling in those energetic aspects that are trapped and spasmed. This is one of the facets of the mastery that I demonstrate. And it turns out that a person, regardless of his starting conditions, no matter where he starts, he still finds his own strengths, and through them, pulls in and draws out all of his energy as a whole. As soon as the energy reaches a certain level of mobility, as soon as the power, speed, intensity of this energy begins to increase, any practitioner runs into a problem. He discovers a cocoon around himself, meaning a certain structure, which is not natural for a human being, even though almost everything is wrapped up in it. And there's a strong desire to tear off this cocoon, to shake it off so it doesn't interfere with the further kindling and igniting of one's energetic component, meaning the growth of one's awareness of their own energy. Your awareness about their own energy. That's when a person would shake off this cocoon. Their energy was released, even stronger. Processes were launched. The processes that were previously launched with difficulty, some processes reached such speeds and intensity that certain superpowers began to manifest. Each person had their own individual situation, but it was plus or minus. These mechanisms were triggered. And now, the next stage, the next level, is when we bring all our energy, all that we have. We bring it to a common unified level of intensity. When a person comes into this world, as I mentioned before, they have their strengths and weaknesses. And, in most cases, every time we got hit in our pain point, everything would fall apart. What do I mean? For example, a person can be very effective, hardworking, always has a good tone, and enjoys good health. But, for some reason, he didn't have a good relationship with his parents. Well, that's just how it is. And every time there is a conflict with the parents, he is losing his positive traits and falls into a certain state of numbness, until the moment when all of this gradually fades away over time. But the time he spent in that numbness, no one can give back to him. That time is lost. The same goes for relationships with a man or a woman. Everything is fine, everything is on fire. Relationships with friends, acquaintances, work, achievements, sports successes, but some kind of conflict in the realm of domestic relationships, in the family. The person has dimmed. There's no desire at all. I don't want to grow. I don't want to live. I don't want to do anything. He falls back into that stupor, emptiness, and numbness and stays in it for a while. In other words, it crushes him, even in areas where he is good. We can go through a huge number of everyday situations that each person can, in one way or another, admit to themselves, not even to me, just admit to themselves that yes, here, you won't break me, you can't get through, but if you just poke me here with a finger, I will suffer, I will be in pain, I will lose my vitality. Yes, for a while, yes, it will all gradually fade away, yes, little by little I will return to my normal state. But again, time is lost, it can't be returned, and that area, which is weak, is still susceptible to further blows. When a person sheds their cocoon, when his energy structure becomes much more expansive and open, his strengths become stronger and his weaknesses become more accessible. By practicing, we partially close these weak points of ours, and partially we no longer fall under light influences from the outside. That is, we are becoming more stable, we are becoming more holistic, we become more harmonious, but still, this initial setting, this initial configuration, still has an influence. This configuration is made up of many factors. One of these factors is the position of celestial bodies in the sky. So yes, it is astrology, it is. So, which planets influenced us at the moment of our birth? And these, on the way, I need to change these starting conditions, move the planets around so they align differently, but that's not an option. It's unlikely that anyone will be able to do that. But, thanks to the practices, thanks to the techniques that I will be showing, you can change your starting configuration. So, in order to break free from the influence of the initial starting conditions, no matter where they come from, you really don't care where these starting conditions come from. We just take ourselves out of that configuration. We're getting out of that configuration. And first we let go of the windows. We free ourselves. Then, the third stage begins. The third stage is the pillar of fire. And it's real, pillar of fire. So this is a real state when, at a certain distance from the physical body, approximately 0.5 meter to 3 meters, depending on how much effort someone puts into the practice, the energy starts to look like a pillar of flame, like a huge column of fire. Moreover, this column has neither an end nor a beginning. It's a holistic, unified structure. And when a person reaches such a state through techniques and practices, so it's just impossible to do anything with it or to try to break through it to any old pain points. These points are no longer there. These tightness, spasms, painful reactions, vulnerabilities, they simply don't exist. Why does this happen? I've always said that energy is primary. And for the most part, everything else is determined precisely from the level of energy and below. So energy, psyche, physics. Even higher is consciousness, but that will be a separate conversation about it. Right now, that's enough for us. So, our energy and interaction with the outside world is fundamentally built on energy centers. If we were shedding the cocoon by concentrating the power of the flows that come through the gates, and the main focus was there, then the fire column transforms, and a person transforms into a fire column thanks to the energy centers. How does all this work? We have 7 centers in the body, and you can read about this online if you search for chakras, for example. There's a huge amount of information, but there's already much less information online about the fact that, besides, the 7 energy centers, we have an infinity of them. So these centers don't stop at 7. We have 8, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, millionth, billionth up. And it goes down just the same. So when in publicly available information, the discussion is about the 7 centers, which are simply those same 7 centers that most people have through which we interact with the world around us. Some people interact with the surrounding world from a greater number of centers, but these people, they are basically are very specialized, let's say professional. For example, people who practice martial arts, who engage in wrestling, aikido, jiu-jitsu, where you need to stand firmly on your feet. They also have developed centers that go down. So the centers that are at the level of the knees, at the level of the shins, and the feet, which is located at the level of the thighs, on the leg, you could say, is the negative 3rd center, negative 2nd center, negative 1st center. If we take the perineum as the 1st center, then all the centers above it are the positive centers. So the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. If the perineum is the 1st center, then the centers go down from there. Negative 1st, negative 2nd, negative 3rd, and so on down. And so in order to stand firmly as if you're really rooting yourself into the ground, a person starts to use their negative centers. And such people, they don't slip, they don't stumble. They really walk as if they have a root system inside the earth. They can't be turned at all. Negative centers are well developed in sailors because, again, it's a professional activity. They are compelled to express these energies, but in most cases, people don't use them at all. That is, not only that, they are not in demand, so they are not spoiled yet. Because they are not in demand, they are not damaged. That is, they do not spasm. They simply exist. The 1st center is responsible for interaction with the outside world, in terms of survival. So through it, through these energies, we preserve our life, the life of the physical body. We dodge. We run away from something dangerous. We jump back. We protect ourselves. So, all instincts, one way or another, go through the 1st center, through the energy that is there. Naturally, if a person does not want to live, becomes despondent, falls into depression, this center begins to crystallize. It freezes. It loses its mobility. It loses its fire. It just turns to stone. And when a person turns to stone, they start to lose their vitality even more on a physical level. Our 2nd center is responsible for relationships with loved ones, close people. That's why there are cataclysms, discontent, disputes, and conflicts. And this internal rejection, like no, it's just not there. It closes off the energy of the center. The center cannot burn if on these energies, on these vibrations, you begin to generate rejection. Every time when for some reason a person falls into a state of rejection, aversion, it doesn't matter what it is, what it could be, there is jealousy, pride, hatred, aggression, despondency, it doesn't matter at all. It's just a fact. You don't accept it and that's it. You start resisting. Every time a person does this, their energy starts to constrict and crystallize. That's exactly how the knowledge from the 1st course allows you to stop interacting with the world in that way. In other words, stop engaging in self-destructive behavior and to look for opportunities in such a way that no one was slapping you on the cheeks. But if that happens to you, it doesn't bother you at all. So it doesn't break your energy, because this position of just take it all on the chin is, I think that the translator didn't try hard enough. The third center is upbringing. It's training. It's manipulation. It's the energy, center of power structures and the most primitive fraudsters, thugs, you could say. So these are people who behave like this. It seems like they don't touch you, It seems like they don't beat you, but you're scared. You try to give them everything just so that they leave you alone, although they don't even touch you. These are employees of the special services who must obtain information from a person, however, and at the same time, they are not allowed to do anything with this person, but at least in a way that's noticeable. So, these are the power structures, meaning this center is responsible for training. This center works quite well when you're training. For example, an animal, like a dog or some scary creature. It seems to obey you and is also afraid of you. These are all the energies of the third center. Again, if for some reason you can't accept this at all, if you reject it with all your might, you're closing off your center. You're distorting yourself. It's like, well, you touched it. I don't know. You burned your hand on a hot iron, and instead of not touching the iron anymore, you take your hand and cut it off. So, it's roughly the same logic, but it happens on an energetic level. Why do people do this? Because they don't feel it. As soon as a person starts to feel this, he stops doing that. And all he has left are just habits. And habits occasionally trip him up. Sometimes they drag him down. So he stumbles over his own habits, but over time it all gradually gets balanced out. The fourth center. No matter what anyone says about love, this isn't about love. The fourth center is responsible for self-acceptance. When you can walk up to the mirror, look yourself in the eyes and say, damn, I'm doing great, everything's good with me. I know what I want. I achieve what I strive for. I get what I need. And in general, I'm awesome, I satisfy myself, I like myself. This is the energy of the fourth center. So this is the energy of the deepest. The deepest acceptance of yourself and your life, your path, your skills and mastery, your abilities, your achievements, your desires. You accept yourself completely. These energies are actually located just above the center of the chest. This is the fourth center. These are the vibrations, these are the energies. When we are dissatisfied with ourselves, we start to pile ashes on our heads. With ashes, we start to engage in self-flagellation. We start to stress ourselves out. We hinder the fourth center from flowing. We hinder these energies from working. Flow, burn, shine. We shove them into a cage, first into a grid, then into a cage, then into a cocoon, and then the energy completely loses its ability to manifest. Naturally, such a person becomes closed off. They are always dissatisfied, always gloomy, always irritated. Nothing pleases them, not even themselves. Naturally, if you don't like yourself, no one else can like you. Everyone around you seems bad. They just become, so it's like a circle that, like a black hole, starts to pull itself in and then collapses. Recent studies are already saying that a black hole is not an eternal process. At some point, it just evaporates. Not quickly, of course, but it does evaporate. So, when a person starts to drown themselves, sooner or later, they achieve success in this, no matter how sad it may sound. Sad. The fifth center, this is communication, the ability to be heard, the ability to be understood. This creativity, it's songs, it's poetry, it's the ability to speak, and to speak in a way that makes people want to listen, so that it's pleasant for people to listen to you, so that you don't annoy people with your voice, so that you don't annoy others by drawing attention to yourself. Again, through the voice. The fifth center. If a person feels constrained or overwhelmed, it's very difficult for them to assert themselves. It's very hard for a person to express their opinion. A human is it's hard to achieve something from those around you. So he comes, let's say, and contacts some government service, some official, but he doesn't listen to the official at all, as if that person doesn't exist. But if a person with a burning fifth center comes in, the official has no other option. He will hear him. And he will hear it very clearly. He will hear it very clearly. Most likely, he will not even want to argue, because a mechanism will subconsciously work in him, that if a person can speak like that, then there is no need to argue with him. I'd rather argue with the next person who comes in after him, who will be in a much weaker position. So that's why So what am I getting at with all this? Am I telling the story? You drifted. Am I telling the story? To the fact that all relationships with the outside world and in our lives, that's what relationships with the outside world are. I seriously doubt that right now, someone is sitting in a cave with a phone, and after the broadcast ends, they'll just flood the entrance there. There are no such people. We all live in society. We all live in the modern world, and we are constantly, permanently exchanging energies and vibrating with these energies, shining these energies out into the world from ourselves. Accordingly, the outside world does the same in relation to us. Naturally, if we have closed ourselves off, become tense, and spasmed our center, then we do not shine through it. That's all for us. There is no such possibility. And light can't get in because there's just a barrier there. And that's really sad. In fact, it's a situation that deprives a person of the ability to enjoy their life, and in general, to sustain that life. His life starts to fade away. Following the decline of energy, the physical aspect fades, the mental aspect fades, and the person just falls apart. 7 centers through which a person mostly interacts with the world. The 6th center is intuitive relationships. It's a silent kind of relationship. It's that infamous word, intellect. It's the ability to quickly understand a situation, to calculate rapidly, to think fast, but without words. So it's resourcefulness. So it's about how resourceful you are. Yeah, you don't know, you don't understand, you don't have diplomas and dissertations, but you... Man, that's how it's going to work. How did you guess that? How did you manage to do that? That is, you, as if intuitively begin to calculate the further development of events without using logic. Logic is a very slow mechanism. Yes, it works, but it's very slow. Intuitive people are head and shoulders above those who have well-developed logic. So the 6th center is precisely intuition, it's resourcefulness, it's the ability getting to that state of enlightenment, insights when you're like, aha, I got it. How did you understand that? You haven't slept at all for the last 10 hours. How did you figure that out? Like this, the energy of the 6th center. And accordingly, if a person for some reason, basically it is information dump, when it pours on him, his 6th center is completely blocked. And they just lose those opportunities. The 7th center is the center of creativity, the center of possibilities for the manifestation in this world of that which is not here yet, that which will be new here, that which will be in great demand here, that which will be a masterpiece, that which will be an incredible achievement, a discovery. And all of this is simpler. You can write a brilliant poem, invent the latest technology, or calculate some incredible formula. This is all about the 7th center, the energy of the 7th center. Oh, why am I telling all this? To the fact that every time we start creating nonsense at any of these levels, we begin to create stupidity. We fall into a state of idiocy and start rejecting these energies and closing ourselves off. Again, it doesn't matter what the reason is. The fact is that we lose all our overall brightness and we just get overwhelmed. As I said at the very beginning, you can dare to be a genius there. A poet, yes, like Pushkin, but he got stuck at the level of relationships with women, he went to shoot himself, and nothing worked out for him there either. So, it seemed that the energies of the 7th center and the energies of the 6th center didn't help him survive in any way. Why? Because at the level of the 2nd center, he couldn't handle it. And we can take anyone like that. Tragic fate, and just see how a worthy, brilliant person just breaks down. They completely break down over some nonsense, something you might say, yeah, puffed, not a big deal, it won't happen to me. They just break down completely. Over some nonsense that you might say, yeah, puffed, not with me, that could never happen. It will really happen. But something else will happen to you, where you're weak. And that will happen too, it's true. When our centers are shining brightly, and they are not connected to each other, they just shine. We only have connections between paired centers. I showed them. Our 4th center is not paired. He is on his own. And ideally, it would be best to count from him. but we count from the centers of the perineum, and let it all be that way. Let's not introduce any inaccuracies here. The fourth center, there is no pair. Next. Third, fifth, they are connected by lateral channels. These channels go like this in a ring. On the side, and through these channels, energy has the ability to somehow influence the connected paired centers. So, what do I mean? A very vivid example of this is sexual restraint and the creative process. So, if a person is sexually unrestrained, satisfying their animal instincts left and right, their creativity disappears. It gets erased. It's just not there. Why? Because the first center is connected by these side channels with the seventh. So, if he starts to just radiate all of this from the first center constantly, overloading it, then things are constantly happening there. Some not the most beautiful relationships, because sexual promiscuity hardly ever implied the highest romance. There is no beauty. Basically, these are some irritated sexual connections in very strange states, with very strange people who themselves, in such states, also under the influence of alcohol, and with a bunch of infections. And if the first center suffers, then the body suffers, the energy suffers, and the seventh center suffers right after it. The first one also begins to fade, the person leaves the creative state, and he just has no inspiration, it's simply gone. And why did I remember Pushkin? Because when he wrote poetry, he would go to the countryside. In other words, he pulled himself out of society. He pulled himself out of the crazy city life and hid somewhere in the village. And his poems would just flow out like from a horn of plenty, of abundance. But this is just the first seventh, the second, sixth. Again, yes, the second, sixth. You start arguing with your parents, you start fighting with your relatives and loved ones, and you lose your intuition. Have you ever thought about this at all? Have you made such an analogy? But it exists. You argue with everyone, and there's no intuition. Why? Because the sixth and second centers are connected. Well, the same goes for the third and fifth. Here, I think the connection is quite obvious. So if you were suppressed, if you were trampled on in childhood, if you were trampled on, scared, you can't really speak. People can even become stutterers if they're pressured enough. They also pressured you, scared you. So, here are the connections. But that won't really help us much either, because the centers are paired. And influence, another center by means of, you can influence one of them, but nothing good will come of it anyway. Let's not forget what we have. In addition to these seven centers, there are also additional ones that go infinitely up and infinitely down. It's all there. In the first year of practical energy studies. So, there are structures, egregorial, and it's going to be a bit difficult right now. But for the sake of a complete picture, just trust me to my words. Or you can check my words yourself by developing your extrasensory abilities. Egregors. These systemic configurations, systemic formations, energetic. These are not some otherworldly forces. These egregores are created by the person themselves. In other words, we create them. So now we are actively creating artificial intelligence, and then this artificial intelligence will already be engaged in independent activities. The same goes for egregores. We create these clouds of vibrations, clouds of consciousness. And at some point, these clouds become self-aware and start to parasitize those who created them. And these egregores overshadow human, nature, the human flow, up to the 108th center. I would even say up to the 107th ton center. So, up to the 107th center, everything is controlled by certain configurations, certain structures, and a certain system. Here we go. In other words, we are being controlled. even in places where in most cases we aren't even aware of it. We don't even know that we are there, yet we are still being controlled, up to the 108th center. So these energy centers, by their very existence, are already connected to some controlling entities, to the organs of this egregore, and accordingly we don't use them. They are used by another conscious structure that parasitizes us. No one just drops dead from this. There's no need to be afraid, but like, for example, Elon Musk, we only have one. But maybe there would have been about 20 of them in each state. If we were sufficiently freed from all these mechanisms, but we have above the 108th center and further up the energy centers, up to 1008, up to 1,000,000, 8, up to 1,000,000,000, 8, and they are no longer under any influence or control. They simply exist within us. But we don't even suspect it. In most cases, the same goes for down. I know a huge number information streams where people are arguing passionately. People argue that low-frequency energies are bad. Low energies are necessary, we shouldn't give them up. That's nonsense. That's nonsense, rubbish, and provocation. Why? Because in a musical instrument, there are high-frequency strings and low-frequency strings. There are notes, the high range and the bass range, and no one says that a note is bad. They all participate in the formation of music. The same goes for our energy centers, which go down. Also shapes our energy, shapes our flow, and shapes us as well. So what is the fire column? The fire column is when we take our energy centers and start to release. Naturally, I help in these processes. You let yourself go completely. You surrender to these processes. And by releasing your energy, the intensity becomes so high that these centers start to connect with each other. There are videos on the internet where two metal rods, or a rod and some other metal part, it doesn't matter, push against each other and one of them starts to spin. It starts to spin really fast, and at some point both of them start to heat up to a fiery state, after which they are welded into a single structure just from the friction. So they heat up so much that they enter into each other and connect. That's it, they can't be separated anymore. Energy centers won't just connect with each other like that. They pass through each other because they have different frequencies. And basically, we have no way to connect them. But there are techniques that allow these energetic centers that they, by radiating their vibrations, their glow, however you want to call it, but it's still an outflow. It's a kind of movement of energy that they, coming out with their vibrations, their glow, whatever you want to call it, but it is still an outflow. It is a certain movement of energy, leaving the physical body. They gain this intensity, and on the periphery they begin to slowly connect with each other, to fuse. That is, the turbulence between them becomes so powerful that the synthesis process is launched. Synthesis is when the substance connects. So an atomic explosion is when, on the contrary, it breaks apart, it separates. Right now, the entire scientific community is focused on learning how to synthesize matter, that is, to connect it instead. And there is much more energy there. That's why everyone is so eager to chase this process. It's believed that you can even achieve a closed cycle through synthesis. So it's a kind of cycle where there will be much more energy than fuel spent. They are still experimenting. We are also moving through similar mechanisms, but on an energy level. And when a person, at the level of their 7 centers, it triggers these processes. At the level of their 108 centers up and down, it triggers these processes. At the level of the 1008th center, and minus the 1008th center, it triggers these processes. At least, just imagine 1,000 centers up, 1,000 centers down, 2,000 centers. In one powerful surge, it radiates its energy. This energy merges into a single column of fire. This column of fire spreads throughout the flow. And out of these 2,000 centers, only 7 are affected by some external influence. Well, and another 108, if you're still fanatical enough to be influenced by Gregors. From 2,000 centers, 114. 107 centers are only under influence, and only 7 of them are under direct strong influence. You can't break them in any way. Because the centers that are not under any influence don't even have situations arise where they could be suppressed, spasmed, or closed in any way. And so, when a person accepts such a configuration, these 2,000 there, you can make 1,000,000 up, 1,000,000 down. It all depends on how capable a person is of feeling all of this. In any case, I will set the adjustments to the maximum up as much as I can also adjust it to the maximum down, and that will definitely be more than 1,000. And this is the configuration when, let's say, 2,000 centers are rushing in a single impulse together. So with these 7 and another 100 up, it cannot be suppressed in any way. Through 1, 2, 3 centers, all this fiery power, it can't be suppressed in any way. It's just impossible. As if, no matter how you were initially configured, no matter how you were initially rebelled and educated, no matter how you were initially twisted into a knot, at certain levels, those centers that are up and down, and that are constantly, permanently, and non-stop shaking, this knot will be untied right away. And they will never allow anyone to tie this knot again, because anyone who puts their hands in you will immediately be left without these hands. Well, I'm speaking figuratively, but that's the essence of it. Because you turn into a thermonuclear reactor that operates in the open air. That is, there is no factory around you, there are no people around you. Some kind of protective structures. You just start to acquire such a nature. This is what a fiery pillar is. Practitioners, those who have reached such a state, are already high-class masters, specialists, and basically, what else are you doing? What else are you here? You're planning to learn, but in fact there is still something to learn. There is another step, which is not even a step, which is the core of my tradition, which is generally the essence of everything that happens. Why is all this done? Why does a person seek their own energy? Why do they learn to interact with the outside world, so that it is not suicide, just on the road? Why do we shed the cocoon? Why do we transform into the configuration of a fiery pillar? What's the purpose of all this? Yes, you will live here in luxury. Yes, everything will be fine for you here. Yes, everything will be wonderful. Please, do what you want. Do what you want. Enjoy yourself, as your heart desires. Shit, it doesn't matter. But, don't forget about the soul, that's the main thing. But, at some point, every living being faces the fact that nothing is eternal under the moon. All this extrasensory perception, all this unleashed power, all of this is the most loyal relationship of reality towards you. Why is it loyal? Why does this happen at all? Our world is harmonious. He constantly strives to maintain this harmony. If you feel that the world is not harmonious, you need to develop your extrasensory perception, and you will see that it is harmonious. You'll just prove it to yourself. I know that many people are ready to get upset and argue with me. I won't argue with them. I have already proven everything to myself. I've already proven everything to myself. That's why I calmly state and affirm that the world is absolutely harmonious. If you don't see this harmony, you just need to look broader, plain and simple. Don't bother with your perception. That part of the scale where everything is actually balanced. So, since the world is absolutely harmonious, then, if we want to take something just out of our whim, not because it's spiritual development, not because it's the right thing to do, but simply because we want to take it, we have to give something in return, meaning we need to make an exchange. This exchange, it never happens. For a long period of time, reality will still balance you out. If you don't see beyond the physical body, you won't see this balance. That's a fact. Because reality balances us not just through physical methods. It can balance us in a completely multifaceted way. If you see both at the physical level and at the energetic level, that is, at the level of first attention and the level of second attention, you see how it all happens. You see how it balances you out. So, when you want to take something, you will definitely give something in return. Or voluntarily. Or forcibly. Or what you took will be taken away from you. Taken in a chaotic way, that is, unharmoniously. So, you can give at the level of energy. What is the process of giving at the level of energy? At the level of energy, it's when we are flowing out. In our reality, energies beyond these 7 centers are in high demand. Everyone, in one way or another, flows with the 7 centers. Yes, for some the upper center works well. For others the lower one, for some the middle one, and for some, all a little bit. For some, all sorts of different configurations here a little bit, and there a little bit. So one way or another, in our reality, most people express their vibrations at the level of the 7 centers. Well, there are 1,000 of these centers. How many people do we have who can express at least 1,000 up and 1,000 down? Forget it, 100 up and 100 down. How many are there? Very few, I can tell you right away. Very few, and in reality, there is a very high. The need for these energies. Now imagine that you, having taken on the configuration of a fiery pillar, are permanently transmitting these energies into the surrounding reality, and under such pressure that they are burning, energetically burning. So you are constantly giving, you are always pulling this balance between you and reality in the direction of giving a lot. You won't even have time to take enough from reality of whatever comes to your mind. So the balance will always be on your side, just because you have that configuration, just because you practiced it. And that's it. You're sleeping, the balance is on your side. You're eating, the balance is on your side. You went, I don't know, bought an apartment for yourself, and the balance is still on your side. Why? Because your energy has that configuration. And reality perceives you as a very positive, very helpful, and very worthy person. And this configuration is practiced. So, when a person is doing well, when he is ready to tackle some global, large-scale projects, when he has already, one way or another, he resolved all his everyday problems, when he addressed all his needs. Any practicing person sooner or later closes all of his, these basic needs are impossible. I don't know a single truly practicing person who has problems with basic needs. Everyone has cars and apartments. I don't have a car because I don't need one at all. I'm sitting in the middle of a huge city. Everything is within walking distance here. If I really need to, it would take me about half an hour to get to any part of the city. But if I needed it, God, I would have that car. So, any practicing person who does everything is doing well, everything is fine, everything is good, he has no needs. And at some point, a person sets a goal that an average, ordinary person. He doesn't even allow himself to wonder. He doesn't even allow himself to think that I want to turn half the planet upside down. To turn it in a way that I think would be much more right than what exists now. Such people will never say, I will build a spaceship to fly to Mars. Or I will build a store now where anyone can buy any product from their home and get it literally within walking distance. Or right on that. That's what I want. So build the store. I'm talking about Amazon right now. I'm not talking about Vlaberis or Asden right now. This is about Amazon. The same thing happened initially when the Facebook platform first appeared. And then VKontakte copied it. Same as when it first appeared. WhatsApp, yes. Then it was copied to Telegram. In which, by the way, we are communicating right now. So, there are always people who are doing something innovative, something large-scale, something that has an impact on the entire planet. And so, when a person meets their basic needs, when everything starts to go well in their life, when he has already realized all three levels of practical energy, shedding the cocoon, the fiery pillar, when he has already played out all his whims, desires, needs, everything he was missing, everything he wanted, everything he required, all of it is fulfilled, all of it is done. That's when he starts to set truly grand plans, and that's when it all comes to life in its full glory. The knowledge, practices, the essence of everything we've done, the core of my tradition called Sri Yang. And believe me, to an already not so young practitioner, that the Sri Yantra is not just the image you can easily find on the internet. That's not it. Yes, this image represents the Sri Yantra. But meditate on it. Wear it. Recently, someone told me that you should put it in your wallet to attract money. I always find that amusing. No, that's not it at all. Sri Yantra is the energy configuration, which is around every person, but which is de-energized. It is asleep, it is non-functional, and only one or two aspects of this yantra, consisting of 64 forms of energy. These energies are called Shakti. 64 minds? Only 1, 2, or at most 3 of them in an ordinary person show any signs of activity. That's exactly why. If you take such a person and put them in charge of some huge organization, that organization will just fall apart. It won't work. Push Elon Musk out of his position and put some smart guy in there. It won't work. Because this smart guy just doesn't have the opportunities. Awakened energy of the mind to hold this entire corporation together. So, in most cases, people are much more valuable than what they have built. And it often happens that, for example, it used to be like that, but now, how can I put it? People have adapted a bit. But it often happened that, for example, a father builds some huge, powerful, indestructible business. And then he leaves or passes away. The children take his place, and everything just falls apart into ruins. It seemed unsinkable, all of it. No? A year, another, a third, and there's no trace left of the company. And so, to keep such a company that was created by one person, yes, he had assistants, yes, he had partners, but he was the driving force. He carried the entire structure he built on his own energy. And so, how did people adapt? They started to appoint that one person as a shareholder. So, with a large number of people who could somehow maintain this configuration, preventing it from falling apart to what was built. And there could sometimes be dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of these shareholders. There were boards of directors. So at first, one person makes all the decisions. Then, when he's no longer around, when he's gone. So then, some group of people starts making all the decisions because you won't find another like him. He's gone. And so if you claim to such opportunities in yourself, so then certainly indeed knowledge about yantra is exactly your area. This is not a practice that is known only in my tradition. One way or another, it manifests in a huge number of traditions, in any part of the world, in any religion, in any kind of school system. One way or another, you can find these sometimes fragmented information, sometimes complete information, but one way or another, you can find this knowledge. These energies, which are referred to as Shakti. From these energies, our entire manifested world is made up. That's why you can often hear that the world is made up of feminine energies, or of feminine energy, which is material energy. Well, you can hear something like that. And that corresponds to reality, right? It is precisely from such energies that the fabric of the universe is woven. And when these energies are only manifested in the external world and within you, they are asleep. You have no way to interact with these energies. None. Interact not in the sense that you touched and fell asleep, but in the sense that you took control of them and started to manipulate them. However you want for these energies to obey you, to serve you, to listen to you, to move and dance with you. You have no way. Yes, there are a certain number of people who, in some way, somehow opened this possibility for themselves. In other words, they revealed these energies within themselves. Thus, they opened the possibility to interact with those same energies externally. But there are very few of these people. The knowledge about yantra is absolutely closed secret. And you can easily verify this after searching the internet. In most cases, it will just be some theories about how you need to meditate on a picture, on a piece of paper. No, you shouldn't. In my practice, I don't even use this picture. Although she is quite beautiful, I like her. But for practice, it's not used. Although, again, you can build a practice so that it is used, so that it is applicable, but then you will have to draw it. In a diameter of 6 meters, that's when it becomes applicable. When this picture is so tiny, you can't use it in any way. If you draw it with a diameter of 6 meters, sit in the middle, that's when it's drawing how the shadow of the structure around you, like a shadow, will correspond to reality. But this is just a shadow of what every person carries around in their energy, and this structure is drained. Let me remind you once again, literally 1, 2, or at most 3. Some segment of this structure works, no more. In the overwhelming majority of cases, only one segment of this structure is more or less awakened, more or less developed. Everything else is dormant, asleep, and generally in an off state. In this configuration, you won't achieve any global goals. Reality will ignore you. It will refuse to obey you. It will refuse to fit into the structure that you want. It will ignore you. But if around you, this configuration was awakened, energetically awakened, not in a way where we just imagine it. That's all off the mark. No one is really imagining anything here. Really, physically, with the help of your extrasensory perception, we awaken each of these layers. The practice begins with awakening the 9 layers that are located around the physical body, and it permeates this physical body I think each of you has had the experience of learning something new in adulthood, to retrain, to improve your professional skills, to learn some new information, to master some trendy device that you've never dealt with before. So, I think each of you, I'm sure of it, has dealt with similar things. That's how hard it can be, to the point of nausea. To retrain or to master something completely new, it really drains you. Yantra is the knowledge of how to learn everything at once. You can now imagine what level of strain will be placed on you as soon as you enter these processes. Therefore, people who just come in from the street and say, "Give me a yantra," they also return to this street. In my entire life, only once, purely out of curiosity, I passed this practice on to a person who was just doing something there, practicing something, and had no relation to practical marketing. He fell asleep every time after 15 minutes. He just fell asleep. I've just lost the meaning of what's happening. I say, "How much should I pass on to you?" "Stop sleeping," I say. "Wake up," although I understood perfectly well that he didn't have the resources to start these processes within yourself. It's like taking a regular AA battery and trying to power a kettle with it to boil water. You won't be able to do it at all. That battery will just drain completely, and that's it. And the water, as it was cold, will remain cold. And to avoid being that battery, like in the movie The Matrix, a man is a battery. In order not to be this battery, we made the first step. Developed extrasensory perception, learned about our energy. We learned about our configuration. We took the second step, threw off the shackles, and freed ourselves. We will soon create the third step, the fire column, completely and fully. I will help you. This is a step that everyone will have to climb on their own. I've just shared a lot of good things, a lot of positivity, but now it's time for some harsh reality. I won't be able to do this for you anymore. If I could still peel the cocoon off you, just because I know how, here there's nothing to even know how to do. Since you interact with the outside world yourself, you build those relationships on your own. If you keep burying yourself, I won't be able to dig you out at all. But if you start digging towards it, at least from your side, I'll be able to get you out. Therefore, the fire pillar practice is not the kind of practice where I say, "Guys, just come. Everything will be..." No. This is the first time I'm saying that each person is responsible for their own results. But from my side, I'll do everything possible to help you succeed. The second harsh reality, you can fall out of this state. Our free will is so vast that even from the state of a pillar of fire we can cool down, extinguish. Yes, it will take a lot of effort to achieve that. Yes, it will take a lot for that. Do nothing. Just do nothing. Absolutely not. But that possibility is there. That possibility exists, and just like the cocoon can grow back, the fire column can also extinguish. And I know of practices that I worked with people individually, and I individually transmitted these states to them. I know practitioners who managed to lose it. But there's no need to be upset about it, because as soon as you want to return to that state, it's very easy to do, because all the settings, all the skills don't just disappear. It will be enough to just put a little bit, pause your crazy hustle and dive in. To do it, techniques, the state comes back quite easily. But bringing yourself to cooling down from all of this is real. That was the second harsh reality. The third harsh reality, which in principle I have already voiced to you, that yantra, Sri Yantra, in order to awaken it. This is the kind of strength you should have, this kind of power. Without this power, you won't be able to awaken it. It will remain asleep just as it has been, so you can't boil a kettle with just a battery. So if you're still thinking it over, doubting. Train your practical energy. Close off some of your everyday things. If you ready to state your intention to absolutely anyone, and you won't even flinch at that moment. You won't be scared, you won't back down, you won't be afraid. If your intention is strong, if you absolutely know where you're going and what you need here, then you have the opportunity to engage in these practices. There is an opportunity to endure them. And here, summarizing everything I'm saying right now, a picture emerges. The next picture, jump into the latest practice. Sounds like madness. But I know at least one person who has done such madness. And you know him too. And his shirt is brown. When I received these practices from my teacher, from Ashan, I wasn't even his student. I didn't practice the fire column. I didn't practice shedding the cocoon. The fire column, I didn't practice it. Shedding the cocoon. But I was charged to an unbendable state. And it was impossible to stop. Even then, my heart wasn't really on fire yet. But I was so sure that I absolutely knew what I needed from this world, and nothing could stop me, that just by this crazy self-confidence, I got into this practice. He let me in, and I came, and it all worked out. But I also know cases where people just couldn't handle it. They didn't have the strength to do it. We'll chat a bit, talk. Maybe I missed something. Maybe someone needs to clarify something. And our sun, that's our energy center. If yes, that is parallel worlds. In each of the worlds, there is its own earth. They are parallel. On each earth, a specific scenario is played out. The sun kind of pierces through parallel worlds and is a whole entity in the multidimensionality. The sun is a portal for particles of consciousness that come specifically into our planetary system. There, I found the words. That is, it is a passage for particles of consciousness that come from a certain part of space for realization on our planet. And this sun is identical for the parallel lands. So our Earth is not the only one. There are also parallel ones. But the sun for these lands is one, it's like an energy center. But in its nature, it's probably more portal. How long did your training last? What language did you speak with your teacher? In the Sanskrit language. Actually, I spoke with my teacher in Russian. From my teacher. I spoke in English, even though I hardly know it. My English is very poor. Here? But actually, it all is based on Sanskrit. How long did my training last? If we take the period when I already took on my apprenticeship, then about 6 years have passed. So as I entered the temple grounds, it's been about 6 years. If we take all the time that I was acquainted with this master and practiced one way or another practical energy, there were just some meetings, there were all sorts of different events. Then, well, it's been more than 10 years, of course. More than 10. And to this day, the number's approaching 20 years, but to this day, sometimes we practice together periodically. But now we practice not as teacher and student, but as two practitioners who are moving in the same direction. Is the expiration enough for giving at a basic level? Of course it's enough, but we shouldn't forget about the intensity. Intensity is still a factor that we can't avoid. Yes, when you at least just start doing this, you're already in a winning position. But if you do it intensely, if your energy is fiery, if you just shine like unexpectedly, a Christmas garland in all directions, well, naturally, your value in the eyes of reality will be much higher if you just radiate higher. Here it is. You need to realize that true, genuine practice doesn't go by the clock. It operates under the energy that was involved. Sometimes in just 5 minutes, you can ignite so much that for the whole next year, reality will just supply you with blessings, and those blessings won't run out. Or you can sit there for a week, puff and hate the whole world and reality. It might even give you a smack on the back of the head for hating the whole world. So, it's not about practicing by the clock, but by the intensity. So, what is the frequency of the sound OM? What is the frequency of the sound OM? Well, we need to set up a device, to take a look. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But actually, if we're talking seriously about this topic, then it's not just a frequency. A wave packet, it's a wave packet that has an infinite number of harmonics, up to the craziest frequencies that even the equipment can't catch yet. So, Om is definitely not just one frequency, it's a wave packet. Next, in my dreams, I fill up. I expend every night new dreams. I feel the scent and the cold. I feel like I'm flying, as if in a dream. I live another life. Well, that's wonderful, that's wonderful. Just remember that you live another life while having a physical body. If a person loses their physical body, that, a part of consciousness, resets. That is, you are already like, the self-aware being no longer exists. How is it done correctly? How many suns are there? How many suns are there? The number of suns. The sun, it permeates reality. So how many are there in total? Yeah, who counted them? I just need to figure this one thing out. But knowing the structure of the universe, I can say that there are probably an infinite number of them. How should you hold your hands in the lotus position? You can fold them like this, around your belly. You can place your palms up on your knees, or you can turn them down on your knees. The main thing is that these parts of the body shouldn't be tense. I was glad to chat with you, to practice. I'm not going to start a long discussion right now. Endless dialogues and conversations. Try to convey yourself, to preserve, before entering sleep, in the state that it is now. You can write your impressions. To remember these states not only at the level of vibrations and energy, but also to speak them out at the level of thinking, at the level of the physical body, to record, to state them, to inscribe them into this reality, so that there was a connection between the energetic manifestation and your physical action. And me, I'll read and respond to something. Maybe we'll even talk about this some more. That's all. Well, that's it for today's broadcast. I'm going to take another look at the chat now. Thank you. Om Devi. Om Devi. Devi, this is the Shakti Devi. This is what it's made of. Our reality is formed. This is what you are made of. What I am made of, from what everything manifested consists of. Om Devi. Everything is Devi.
Just be happy. And don't let anyone. Daily circumstances and situations take that happiness away from you. Because if you react with rejection, the energy, it crystallizes, and breaking free from those chains becomes very difficult. If your energy burns and flows out, and in no way do you allow it to be stopped if you are developing and moving in a configuration where, in principle, nothing can be done with you. At some point, you'll suddenly find yourself thinking about what great things to do on this planet, things that no one has ever done before.
Do you want to unlock your inner strength and learn to manage energy? The course, Power of Consciousness 1. Practical Energy will provide you with tools to improve health, develop intuition, and gain a deeper understanding of the world. Join and start changing your life right now. Link in the description.